So thank you for the introduction. Let me start off by saying a little bit about myself, about my personal situation. I'm the father of 4 beautiful and smart boys, and we live in Amsterdam. And my wife, apart from being an amazing person, she's also a yoga teacher, so she tends to keep me fit and flexible, which comes in handy because I started boxing a couple of years ago. And last year, at the age of 46, I did my first boxing match, and I survived. And I also won, by the way, if you're wondering. And through my work, I meet a lot of politicians as well, both here in Amsterdam as in The Hague with the government, to speak about important policies. And I speak about these policies with people from the radio and the television to do interviews whenever that's necessary. And another hobby of mine is actually drumming. I played the drums when I was younger, and nowadays through my work, I meet a lot of musicians that actually I used to really admire, so I count myself very lucky. And some of these people have come back over the years and became great friends, so yeah, that's really nice. I travel a lot with my work, because the business that I'm in is changing very much and rapidly, so we have to see where the opportunities are. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. It's not really that strange altogether. I just have one problem, that is that I work in the cannabis industry, and some people consider me to be a professional drug dealer. Yeah, so let's go in search of the truth then. Let me go back in time and tell you how I got involved in the cannabis industry. Yeah. Back in the 90s, I was studying at this great university, the University of Amsterdam, and then as part of an exchange program, I went 1 year to San Diego to study at the UCSD. And being the curious guy from the Amsterdam coffee shop scene, I was always on the lookout for some good smoke. I was a surfer. That was another really good reason to go to San Diego, because it's right on the beach. And even with these surfer guys, it wasn't that easy to find good cannabis. Actually, it was easier to find any other hard drugs over there than good smoke. So until I met some people from the NORMAL organization. They are the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And they've been lobbying to legalize cannabis for decades, actually. And through them, I learned a lot about cannabis and the cannabis culture. And I realized in Holland, actually, we have more of a coffee shop culture and not really a cannabis culture. And I spoke with them about a famous coffee shop back in Amsterdam. Over here, it's called The Greenhouse. And they won a lot of cannabis cups back in the day. And they were very popular in California. And when we spoke also about the medical benefits of marijuana, I started to really appreciate the system of tolerance that we have back in the Netherlands. Let me ask you a question. Who here thinks that in Amsterdam weed is legal? Raise your hand if you think you do. Okay, I have a well-informed audience tonight, which is good. So probably you know that back in the 80s, the government, they had this smart decision to decriminalize the use and the sale of cannabis through a coffee shop, right? So you can go to a coffee shop, get the information that you need, buy some cannabis, and even smoke it in a safe place. And this system was proven to be very successful, especially with regards to public health. Seeing this system over here and seeing how it works in the United States, back then, of course, it was completely illegal, I started to appreciate more this system, and this was the beginning of my interest in the cannabis industry. Yeah, so what do we do with nowadays? We travel a lot all over the world, and we are working in many different countries, Africa and in Canada and the United States, and we are very happy with what we do. However, I did notice that not everybody is as positive about cannabis as we are. For example, politicians, they are often quite negative about cannabis in the media, and banks, they refuse to give you a personal loan or a mortgage when you want to buy a house. And I noticed even in my personal situation, when I went to family barbecues, for example, I used to want to avoid some unwanted commentary, and I just said I work in the hospitality industry because, I kind of was anyway. But then when I was with my face more on the television, because I became the spokesperson of the industry. And yeah, for the Dutch guys amongst you, if you know what this program is, you know you can't avoid that question anymore. And then even my family asked me the annoying question that maybe I was the leader of the Dutch weed mafia or something. And I thought, okay, now we really have to try to do something to change this. So let me see, how did we try to change this? We thought, okay, we have to try to, like we said before, change people's perspective. So first we tried this through mainstream media. So when we started, this was in the beginning years of YouTube, so we started to put movies on the internet and everything. And then in 2006, Arjan Roskam, the guy in the middle, he started the company back in the day. He traveled all over the world with Simon, the guy on the left, and on the right is the late Franco. He passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. And they were traveling a lot to faraway places like the high mountains in India or the jungle in Colombia to show where the original land races of the cannabis actually come from. And not just that, but also to show what cannabis meant for that local community. Not just for that they smoke it for recreational use, but also sometimes for their religion or for medical purposes. And yeah, the show was a big success. It was broadcast on HBO and on National Geographic, and millions of people watched the show. So our objective to show cannabis from a different point of view was very successful. Another project of ours was to set up a research department called GH Medical. It's not a commercial one. We don't sell CBD oil that you see now everywhere in every drugstore. No, we wanted to research more the possibilities of treating certain diseases with cannabis. As you know, there's certain cannabinoids in cannabis, and each have their function. And the well-known is the CBD oil. You can see it everywhere, but there's a lot of different cannabinoids. And with research, you can do a lot. Joost Heroma, he's the PhD that works at the GH Medical. He does lectures nowadays all over the world for treating diseases with cannabis. And he has partnerships with universities and hospitals to do clinical trials, and very interesting one for diseases like Parkinson and Alzheimer and many other diseases. And we talked about durable products before in another speech, and I won't even talk about cannabis. Hemp products is even a completely different TED talk. But all these things together really confirmed my belief that the plant cannabis as a whole has really great characteristics and qualities. So what's really the problem with weed, cannabis, now that it's getting legal everywhere in a lot of places in the world anyway? I've been working in an industry for many years now where it's illegal to produce the product that we are allowed to sell in a coffee shop. It's a product that many of us like to smoke just to have a good time or to relax or for medical purposes. And an interesting fact actually is that in 1928, when the Dutch government made cannabis illegal, nobody really knew about smoking cannabis. It wasn't even in any books. You can't find it, you know. So you might also wonder why cannabis became illegal in the first place. All we know now is that making it illegal didn't result in less people smoking cannabis, and actually the illegal status itself is causing more problems than the cannabis. So luckily, a lot of countries around us, they get this, especially in Canada and United States, so they are legalizing the weed. What else did we do in the Netherlands to change things a little bit in the industry? In actually all the years that I've been working with the company where I am, we were lobbying to get this organized in a more transparent way, because how I described it before, actually, it's an absurd system. And we always said, just look at the books of a coffee shop, the administration, see how much kilos the coffee shop is selling, and then give that coffee shop individually or in a corporation a license to grow their own supply. It's not a couple of years ago, 2012, we got together with some other serious cannabis entrepreneurs, and we hired a lobbyist because, you can speak and shout as much as you want, but at a certain point you don't get the message across anymore, and this lobbyist helped us enormously with that. And we started a project called the Transparent Chain, which means, it's quite self-explanatory, but it means as much as trying to organize the whole process from seed all the way to sale of the cannabis in a transparent way. And that was a good project. And in 2015, I became the chairman of the Dutch Cannabis Retailers Association, and almost immediately I looked for a connection with other associations, and together we formed Cannabis Connect. This is a photo of an event, and Cannabis Connect is a platform of more associations, and where we organize events like this, where we collect all the input of coffee shops so that we can go to the government and speak with one voice when they speak about cannabis legalization. Because you probably heard also in the media recently that in Holland we're also going to start an experiment in 10 cities to regulate the production of cannabis for the recreational market. So especially nowadays it's very important to be organized and speak with the government. So while we're doing all these things over here, we can look at America and Canada, where weed is actually legal already. And if we look at Canada, where last year, 17 October, the weed got legal, recreational, we can see now that the country is still there, and not everybody is walking around stoned like some opponents used to think. And if you look at the numbers in Colorado, you can see, for example, less people drink alcohol and take less opiates. So that at least is a good thing. I think the most important challenge, also for us in the Netherlands, if you're going to legalize cannabis, how to maintain quality. And quality doesn't necessarily come with huge budgets with millions of dollars. In Canada, weed is federally legal, so there's companies that are listed on the stock exchange, and they're worth billions of dollars. It's a lot of money, and they can spend millions on a celebrity to put his face on the packaging, which is also looking really, really great nowadays. But then if the quality of the product that goes into the packaging is not right, the product is not going to sell. So more importantly than money, what you need is good genetics, because that's where it all starts with, and you need great growers with a passion for cannabis. Another essential thing, really, and I see it going wrong in America in a lot of places, is an understanding of the cannabis culture. It's difficult to explain. It's unique in its way, I think. But if I have to compare it with something, it would be maybe with the hip-hop culture, where the audience or the people, they know if something is real, if it's credible, or if it's fake. And some companies are trying too hard, and they are not getting it right. But there's also companies that do get it right. They have a great product, a sustainable company, and they come up with some innovative ways. The coffee shop, for example, was a unique thing for the Netherlands. But in my recent trips, actually last week I was in Los Angeles, and I was in the first smoke lounge of Los Angeles, where you can just go inside and buy some weed or whatever you want to smoke, and also have a bite to eat and have a drink at the same time. And for me, a coffee shop is a place where many people come together from different backgrounds and religions, and they're all together and having a great time. And I think really the word joint, I don't know where it comes from, but it really joins the people. It's a cliche almost, but it's a simple fact. And I think in a city like Los Angeles, where people are kind of deeply divided, I think it might be a small step, but definitely a step in the right direction. So if we see these things in America and in Canada, what is really the big problem with cannabis? Maybe it's the companies who are now getting into the cannabis industry. It's big corporate companies with big money. Recently there was a funny episode on the South Park, actually, where they criticized one of the biggest corporate cannabis companies in America, because this company was urging politicians to not allow home cultivation. And I spoke before about cannabis culture. If you understand a little bit the cannabis community, you know that's just a no-go, because you shouldn't do that. And the characters in the series said, but weed shouldn't be some money-grabbing business model, and weed is a gift from God and shouldn't be exploited by some huge corporate companies. I can't explain how funny it was. It was really funny. You should definitely go and see it if you have time. But I think in a way they have a really good point. In a way, of course, you need money to legalize this industry. You need money to set up grow rooms and start packaging companies, etc. But this industry should never be monopolized by one huge corporate company who starts expensive lawsuits with expensive lawyers and patents. And I think if we can avoid that, and we can keep the cannabis in the hands of people that have a great passion for it, I think this plant can have a great impact on this planet. Thank you very much.